All right. Well, folks, thank you for listening to the David Carr Podcast. Again, it's been quite a while. I did, one episode right at the end of 2020. And if you listen to the last episode, you'll understand why. It was really just me being very transparent and forthright about the fact that I just wasn't motivated for a lot of months. And, I don't know if it was just the COVID thing and just feeling kind of defeated as a photographer and feeling like it doesn't even feel like this is a viable time to even really get out there and try to do photography, to try to promote yourself. That's just where I was. And so I wanted to be honest about that at the end of 2020 and let you know. And then, but what I've come to find is that a lot of people seem to really like this podcast. I have an audience. I have people who actually enjoy this. And I thought, well, I'm going to just try to really dive in and do a better job of being consistent with the podcast. No promises, but that's the intent, at least right now in February of 2021. So without further ado, I want to introduce my guest once again. She's been on the podcast a couple times, and it's always a pleasure to have you here, Marissa Schmidt. Marissa is just a dear friend and a fellow photographer and somebody who has shot a lot of weddings with me, and we do headshot sessions together, and we've done Santa photos a few times together and things like that. So we really work well together as a team, and I just love the insight that you bring, Marissa, and so welcome and thanks for coming back.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be back. I know that we talk about photography all the time, so this is just pretty natural.
We got together yesterday. We talked kind of to have a little preliminary discussion about what we would talk about in a podcast, and I brought up the subject, and for those of you who are listening or watching, don't roll your eyes when I say this, but I've been thinking about what does it mean to believe in yourself. And I don't like that expression because it's so cliche and cheesy. Mm-hmm. Believe in yourself. And I just picture like a little rainbow shooting over a horizon and a meme on Instagram or Facebook or something. And I get it. Like there is some meaning in that, believing in yourself. But I think a lot of times cliche things like that get so hijacked by just everything to market it and anyway, it gets worn out. But I started thinking about, because like I woke up a couple days ago thinking, do I believe in myself as a photographer? I mean, maybe that's what holds me back sometimes. And I hope that this is going to speak to people who are listening and watching, that it is something that a lot of photographers struggle with. Because when you live in a sea of photographers, when you work within there's gazillions of us out there, it's very hard to believe that you have anything that really will stand out or ever could stand out. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like all the time.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I think it's needed to actually talk about it and not just with other photographers and be able to relate on that, because not everybody's going to get it unless they are, creative or a photographer,
Every day, it seems like I run into people who are like, oh, I'm getting into photography. Oh, I want to get into it. I got a camera or whatever. Oh, I haven't done it in a while, but I want to get back into it. I don't think they mean I want to make a career out of it, usually.
Yeah.
But for those of us who actually do want to make a career out of it and who are making a career out of it and struggling, let's just face it, folks, like most photographers are struggling to make it work as a career.
Yeah.
It's just really hard. Even people who've had success, it's a daily grind, constantly hustling to get more work because it's such an oversaturated field. And yet I don't want to quit. And yet I don't want to not do it because I enjoy it so much and I see the value in it, so.
Yeah. And that's encouraging just to be around and you need it. I mean, if you've been a photographer wanting to make it a career for any amount of time, you know that when you hear from someone that's in the same boat, like, hey, I see your work and it's awesome, like keep going, it just means the world.
Sometimes all it takes is one little milestone that you meet, or maybe selling a piece of art, or selling one of your photographs as a print, or getting a job, getting hired to do a job that pays you well, that's really rewarding, and then you're on fire. Back in the fall, I mean, you and I were doing some shoots together in the fall. We did a big wedding, even though it was COVID times and not quite the most socially distanced mask wearing wedding, but it was what it was. I mean, doing that and then we did a week of photographs with Santa at a big company here in Atlanta. It was a very special week for us. It was a lot of work. We were busy with that. I did a bunch of school photos that I was busy with that, editing, shooting. And when I'm busy like that, I'm on fire. I love it. I love it. I want to do it, Yeah. I think the hard thing is getting out there and promoting myself in the times when there is a lull, which is usually right now, the winter. It's just a little more of a lull. You're not getting as many calls. To hustle and get out there and promote yourself and market yourself. It's just, I think for most of us, it's a struggle. It's such a, we don't even know where to begin. And so coming back to the term believe in yourself, I've realized that a big part of what holds me back oftentimes is just the self-doubt thing, which we've talked about in several episodes. And so believing in yourself is just something that, again, I know that can sound like such a cheesy slogan, but let's just think about what would that actually look like? Like, Marissa, give me some thoughts on what does that mean to you to believe in yourself as a photographer?
Well, I'm kind of with you on that slogan. So,
I figured you would be. So.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know. But I think it is vital for a photographer to believe in their work on some level. I realized that I don't need to believe in every kind of category of photography that I'm going to do. Like, I need to be real with myself too, and not just like, oh, I believe in myself to photograph every single thing out there.
That's good.
Like, that's actually not going to help me in the long run, because there are some things that either I can photograph or like well enough, but I don't enjoy.
Yeah, right.
Or like I'm great at it, but it's just like, man, it just doesn't do it for me, Yeah. So I kind of personally just honed in on like what type of photography I think that I am the best at. And not like I have to be the best at all of it.
Right.
Because I am so much of a realist.
Right. Well, that's good though, because like when you kind of know what your strengths are, it's a lot easier to believe in yourself. Yeah. And to just give yourself the credit for what you're able to do, and it's kind of like banking on yourself, investing in yourself, saying like, hey, look, I know I'm good at these things. Yeah. And I'm good, and I'm going to own that. I'm going to go after them. But I know I'm not good at these things. I'm just like, I'm not going to waste my time pursuing a type of photography or a direction that is just that. Number one, I know I won't believe in myself. And I know that like we all, it takes time to get good at anything. So yeah, you don't start off any endeavor in life fully believing in yourself as if you've got it and you know how to do it, and that would just be arrogance. But you can still believe in yourself. Like, look, I don't know how to do this yet, but I know that I can learn. I know that when I put my mind to something, I can learn and I can get good at it. That's believing in yourself. Yeah, it is. I was actually thinking of that too, of areas that I might be like, well, I don't actually believe in myself to do this, but I want to. Right. So what can I change? What can I learn? Like, what course do I need to take? Or is there a photographer that I need to just pick their brain because they're in this type of photography? Like, what can I do to better my skills and myself as a photographer so that I am more confident and can believe in myself in that? Yeah, that's good. I mean, there's a thing about competence and knowing, like, confidence is good. Confidence, it's almost like knowing, look, I've got 2 hands and 2 feet and a brain and an eye to see things. And like, I know I can do it. Competence is when you're like, I've done this and I've proven to myself that I can do this and do it well. Yeah. And if I mess up, I'm also competent in knowing how to fix that error and still get to where I need to be. And, I think that ties in with believing in yourself. I know for me personally, I struggle big time with it. Yeah. And there are days when I'm just like, I'm scrolling through Instagram or something and I'm just looking at all these amazing photographs and all these photographers. Actually, it's not always that they're amazing photographs. It's that like they're getting a lot of work, or it appears that they are. And it's not always that their work is just like light years ahead. That's what we have to be honest about, is that the difference between the super incredible image and the pretty good image, I think to us, maybe in the world of photography, we see a huge gap, but the average person doesn't see it as much as we don't want to admit that. But so it really becomes more about your brand and who you are and what you offer, not just look how great my pictures are. I mean, that has to be there.
Right.
But we all see people who succeed and do well in it, and then you look at their images and you're like, okay, it's not that they're bad, they're just not like blowing my mind. And so maybe that's not even the goal anymore, is to blow people's mind with the image. Just think of any iconic, beautiful place in the world, and you Google that and look for the images. I mean, there are going to be tons that are going to be stellar. And I think being the best photographer you can be is not just technically the best. It's the whole thing, the way you approach it with clients, the way you build a business.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. And I have to remind myself that I don't have to like have my photography look like somebody else's for me to believe in it. It's like one thing to admire someone's work, but I shouldn't be believing in my photography just because I feel like it looks as good as someone else's. And it's also very deflating if you're trying to copy someone else in some way. Right. Well, and I've struggled with that too. I mean, I just kind of see the trend in, it might be wedding photography, the way that all these wedding photographers have this one look or something, or a lot of them seem to have this one look, and then I go to do the wedding and mine don't look that way, or I don't want them to look that way, or I'm trying too hard to incorporate like lighting or something, or I'm trying too hard to be different. Yeah. In a field where it's not going to matter that I'm so different. In fact, it might turn off some clients because they're like, well, we just wanted somebody that would do what we see all day long on Pinterest or something. And, and I don't want to, like, a lot of times my pride gets in the way and I don't want to swim in those waters. I want to be like, no, I want to be above that. And so anyway, all that ties back into this belief in yourself thing of, what am I trying, if I am going to believe in myself, what am I building that on? Is it, am I building that on just always trying to be unique and different and contrarian to the trend? Or am I building it on, look, my clients wanted this, and this, and I can deliver it. Yeah. And I believe I know I can deliver what they asked for. So it's amazing how much the day-to-day operation of your business and of just your workflow and the way you interact with clients, it's amazing how much of believing in yourself as a photographer ties into that more than knowing how to set your camera up. You know? I feel like that's a really important point, because sometimes we can focus so much on the technical side, which is super important. But by now we've been doing this for long enough to know that there's a lot more to it than that. If you're going to have your own business. And that's when it's the most rewarding, at least for me, not just when I get an image that I'm really proud of, but when I know that my client had a great experience and that they felt like they were heard, like what they needed was heard and delivered in a professional and kind way. Like, it's, for me, it's just not about the photo only. I mean, it's a big part of it. But it's also about that experience.
Yeah, that's so important. I think that's so important. Now, if we were speaking to hobbyists or people who, and it's not at all to belittle hobbyists, because I think sometimes I'm like, I wish I could just make this a hobby and make a good living doing something else, and then just have all this extra time and money to do photography. But speaking to hobbyist photographers, there still has to be a belief in yourself in that. Even though money might not be on the line, the fact that you've invested money into your equipment and time into learning how to do it, again, if your whole entire goal as a photographer is just to post things on social media and get people to like them, I don't know. I feel like that's you're selling yourself way short of what you could be doing. Mm-hmm. But let's face it, that instant feedback we love it. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
And sometimes when I'm on one of these trips and once I get back to Wi-Fi, I can't wait to share some photos. And part of that is, it's just like if I'm hanging out with friends, like, oh, check out this photo I took. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But there is that, like, sometimes I put the cart before the horse, and it's like it becomes all about the metrics of what I'm getting, like the feedback I'm getting through social media. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, that gets deflating really, really quickly.
Yeah.
It's just easy for me to get caught up in that game. I want to kind of rewind just back to this self-doubt / believing in yourself sort of thing. Because like I said, I woke up the other day just thinking about that. And I'm just going to be really, really honest. I have times of anxiety as a photographer where I'm wondering, like, is this even sustainable?
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of even trying?
Yeah.
I should just go do something else that I know I can at least make a steady, decent living doing. Mm-hmm. But I'm not ready to give up, And so
I know.
I think bridging the gap between that cynicism and that sort of nihilism of what's the point, bridging the gap between that and I really believe in myself and I can do this, and I'm going to have a thriving career. Somewhere in there is where I think a lot of photographers sit in that space, if they're honest. Yeah. Even people who are doing pretty well with it, Mm-hmm. It's such an interest, and this doesn't just apply to photographers. I mean, this applies to anybody in a creative field. Mm-hmm. And if you're clocking in at 9 and clocking out at 5 at a job where you just do what you're told to do, in a way that's kind of beautiful, because then you just go and you do what you're supposed to do and you get paid, and like you don't have to worry about the creative process all the time. You don't have to worry about like putting everything, all of your creative energy and juices into this project, and if it fails, oh my gosh, like it's all like I'm gonna have to sell the house or something.
Mm-hmm.
But the beautiful thing is, and this is a reason to believe in yourself, I think, or to foster a belief in yourself, is that we live in a time where, yes, the barrier to entry is so low for photographers. For anybody that wants to get into it, you can get into it today. Mm-hmm. You really can. You can go get a camera and download some editing software, and you can start today. Mm-hmm. And just like anyone else can start today. And so that's awesome. And obviously that comes with the challenge that if you can start today, then anybody can. So then how are you going to be special, in what you do? But because you have such easy access to it, it's kind of like beautiful. It's like the sky's the limit. Mm-hmm. You just have to figure out who you are, what you do best, and how you should invest your time, your money, your energy, your creative, thinking, all of that. And that's what gets me excited sometimes, is just knowing that, like, I don't have to live by anybody else's rules with this. Mm-hmm. I get to do the things the way I want to do them. I just got to figure out how to do them in a way that is sustainable and that I can monetize it, and it just keeps me alive in it.
Yeah. Keeps the creativity going. That's huge. I think one thing that helps me in that, because I'm totally in the same boat, it really helps to have someone else who's like, I get it. Mm-hmm. Like right there with you. I really thrive in my own photography most, I would say, when I am surrounded by at least a few photographers who are just glad to be photographers with me. Mm-hmm. Like we're just on the same team. Just to be able to bounce ideas off of them, and like even if we're doing completely different types of photography, there are still some similarities that, we can maybe benefit from sharing, of things that have worked for us, and that is one of the main things that keeps me going.
Yeah. And this is why I love going to conventions and things like that when we're able to actually do them, and meetups with photographers. It's just, you get together with people and of like mind, and you get together and you talk nerdy stuff about gear, and you compare this lens to that lens. But then there's like this bigger picture thing there, no pun intended there, but there is there's this larger element to it that is really, exciting. If you don't surround yourself with people like that, or if you don't have people that speak into that, it just, you can kind of die a slow death as a photographer. Your excitement for it and your enthusiasm and just the drive to be better and better.
I did want to kind of point out that I'm also on the same page with like the subject matter being the same and of just trying something maybe you haven't done before or trying it in a different way to really kind of just spur the creativity on.
Yeah, like a personal project or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's needed, especially this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. And I think, I don't know. I think there's so many voices that especially when business is slow, when people aren't calling as much, there are so many voices that run through my head, and I'm sure they do for you. And for anybody that's listening that's in that situation, you hear those voices that are like, you should give up. You should stop doing this. Like it's pointless.
Yeah.
I mean, look how much better so and so is than you, and look what they're doing, and look at all the business they're doing. You're never gonna get there. I know this is horrible stuff to say or to admit, but it's just,
it happens.
If we're all honest, these are the things that run through our heads, and again, because creative processes and people who are trying to be creative, it's risky.
Yeah.
It's much easier to just go work a job at a factory where you know exactly what to do. You plug this in, you plug that in, you do this, and you send it down the line. And I applaud people who have jobs that are a little more just predictable, because the world, number one, people need to do those jobs. We need people to do those jobs, and we need people who can do them well. And sometimes people need that stability and that consistency in their life, and they don't want to have to go be super creative all the time. But the world also needs creatives, and it also needs people who are inspiring people through visual and through music and through film and TV, all of that. Like the world needs that as well. So if you are a photographer of any stripe and you feel pretty called to it in one way or another, you have to realize that the world actually needs what you do. It needs what we as a collective of creatives do. It needs that. The world would be so boring if it was all just numbers and figures and just sales and nothing inspiring.
Yeah, my creative brain is like cringing hearing that.
Yeah, it would just be so, if everything was just so calculated and perfect and no risk was taken.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I think risk taking, going back to the expression believing in yourself, it's hard to take a risk when you don't feel like you believe in yourself at all. Again, I don't want to just go round and round and round on that topic, but it is just something that I think anybody listening who has tried to make a career, is trying to make a career, or is wanting to like really step into that in 2021. Again, we're in a crazy time with the pandemic that doesn't appear to be ending anytime soon. And honestly, that was a big part of it. Wasn't just me not believing in myself last year. It was me not believing in myself, coupled with a cynicism and a just sense of hopelessness about like, what's the point, you know? So it made it like, it actually, when people were calling and when I was getting the jobs, then I was making some money doing it. I was like, it gives you that sense of like, this is worth doing. Because there's always going to be a need. And that's the beautiful thing about it. I don't care how good the phones get, the cameras on the phones. There's always going to be a need for somebody who is professional at what they do and how they capture images. And it's not about the quality of what you can get from the phone versus the camera. It's about what a professional photographer can deliver to a client. They're not going to deliver that with their phone. Anyway, I just think we've got to find a way as photographers to push through the hard times and push through the lulls in business, and don't sell ourselves short, Yeah. The other expression that I do like, this expression is, get honest with yourself. Yeah. Getting honest with yourself and learning to say like, this isn't working. And it has never worked. Yeah. And if I think that it's just it's that whole, the definition of insanity thing, just repeating the same thing and expecting different results. And I'm so guilty of that because my comfort zone is where it is. And so then the problem is when the work doesn't come in, that's when the self-doubt starts. And that's when I guess nobody likes me. And I hate talking like this because it's just not like, I don't like loser talk. Is really what, but this is a discussion that we're just having, and I would imagine it's one that if you were sitting here with us, you'd probably chime in and feel some of the same things, and you know, I think it's one that's, again, just worth having.
Yeah, it is key to be honest with yourself, and I think that's kind of at the core of, just to, you know, full circle here. That's kind of at the core of, do I believe in myself when it comes to my photography? You have to be honest with yourself about that, and to work on what's not working.
Yeah, exactly.
And to know that, like, we all get there at times, especially right now. So that's why I'm glad that we're talking about it, because my hope is that it would encourage someone else, just our openness about how we struggle with that question of believing in yourself, and kind of how we're wrestling through it. Just so that they know that they're not alone in that, because you can't do it alone.
Well, and you know, this, I do want to wrap up, but this came to mind that, like, you know, we all have strengths and weaknesses in whatever we do. And I actually heard somebody say recently that he's a business owner. He said he likes to outsource his weaknesses. And I really like that term.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, like, if my accounting is not a strength of mine,
yeah,
it doesn't mean I couldn't get better at it. I believe I could get better at it. I believe I could really work at it and learn how to be better at it. But maybe the place that I need to believe in myself as a photographer is in my ability to do a great shoot and to be great to work with and to deliver something wonderful. And then the other stuff, I'm like, nope, I'm not good at that. And I know it. And I'm going to let somebody else take care of it. And I don't know how you work that in to the cost structure of things, but I think that's how companies are built, is that, you know, and so to build upon those strengths that we have, and to foster that belief in ourselves in those strengths, and maybe, like, just be honest, like we said, with ourselves about all the weaknesses, all the areas that we're not going to do well in, or at least not do as well in.
Yeah.
I mean, my goodness, like, if you start to succeed in the things you are good at even more and more, and you start to build your business and make more money as a photographer because you've outsourced those weaknesses well, then it all takes care of itself.
Yeah.
Now you can afford to pay that person to do this thing or that thing because you're making more money. I mean, that's just the way it works.
Yeah.
But it's easy sometimes for us to want to do everything in-house. And I think that's where you can just start to really, the self-doubt creeps in. So anyway, I won't go into further detail on that because that's a whole different rabbit trail. And, but thank you, Marissa, for, you know,
of course,
just sitting here. I know I did most of the talking. I try not to do that, but no, let's do it again, and let's it's been great. Yeah, and thank you everybody who's listening and watching. Thank you again. This is our
thank you for listening to the end.
Yeah, all the way. You made it. Go get some coffee.
Well done. Treat yourself.
Right. But thank you guys so much. Thank you, Marissa, and
of course.
Yeah, I'll be back hopefully very soon to do another one of these, and let's keep on making things better in what we do.
Yeah.
All right.
Sounds
good. Take care.